My name is Andrea Mitchell, and I was 29 the first time I saw a family portrait that didn't include me. It was hanging in my parents' living room, right above the fireplace where our old Christmas stockings used to go. 18 by 24 inches, gold frame, professional studio lighting. My mother, my father, my sister Claire, and her husband. 4 faces, perfectly posed, perfectly smiling. I was in the hospital that day. I was having a tumor removed from my spine. The surgery was supposed to be routine. That's what the doctors said. Routine. Outpatient. I'd be home in time for dinner. I was 28. Healthy. Strong. I'd survived worse. I'd survived a car accident at 19. I'd survived a broken engagement at 25. I'd survived my sister's wedding, which was its own kind of endurance test. What I didn't survive was the silence. The 3 weeks after the surgery when nobody called. The 4 weeks when I was too weak to drive and too proud to ask for help. The 5 weeks when I realized that my family had moved on without me. And they hadn't even bothered to leave a space. The portrait was Claire's idea. I found that out later, from a cousin who'd been there. Claire had suggested it as a surprise for our parents' anniversary. A new family photo. Something modern. Something that reflected the family, as it is now. As it is now. That phrase, I still think about it. As it is now meant Claire and her husband. It meant my parents. It meant a perfect square of 4 people who had dinner together every Sunday, who vacationed together in the Hamptons, who had never once asked if I could make it. It meant me, in the hospital, alone, while they smiled for the camera. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories, where we sit with the quiet cruelties that happen inside ordinary families, and with the steady people who walk out of them whole. Stay with me, because the part you came for happens late, and it's worth the wait. Let me take you back to the beginning. The day of the surgery. My mother drove me to the hospital. That was the last time she touched me for 6 months. She held my hand in the waiting room, squeezed it, said it would be fine. Then the nurses took me back, and she went home. She went home to my father. She went home to Claire, who had driven in from the city to be there. Not for me. For them. I didn't know that then. I thought she'd be waiting. I thought they'd all be waiting. That's what families do, right? They wait. I woke up from the anesthesia, groggy and cold and alone. The recovery room was empty, except for a nurse who checked my vitals and told me I'd done well. I asked if my parents were there. She said no. I asked if my sister was there. She checked the log and said, "No visitors have signed in." I closed my eyes and went back to sleep. That's what you do when you're too tired to feel anything else. The next day, my mother called. She said she'd come by after work. She never showed. She called again the next day. Same promise. Same silence. This went on for 3 weeks. Every day a phone call. Every day a promise. Every day a broken promise. I stopped answering after week 2. Not out of anger. Out of exhaustion. I didn't have the energy to be disappointed anymore. My neighbor, a woman named Gloria who I barely knew, brought me soup. She drove me to my follow-up appointments. She sat with me while I cried, which I didn't even know I was capable of. Gloria asked me once, about a month in, "Andrea, where is your family?" I told her I didn't know. She said, "That's a shame. A girl needs her people." I didn't tell her that my people had stopped being mine a long time ago. I just nodded and ate the soup. The portrait was unveiled at my parents' anniversary party. I wasn't invited. I found out about it from Facebook, of all things. Claire had posted a photo of the party, captioned, "Celebrating 40 years of love with the people who matter most." The portrait was in the background. I zoomed in. I counted the faces. 1, 2, 4. Mine was missing. I stared at that screen for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, doing the arithmetic. 40 years of marriage. 2 daughters. One of them absent. I called my mother the next day. I didn't mention the portrait. I didn't mention the party. I just said, I'm feeling better. I thought I'd come by this weekend. For dinner. She paused. Then she said, this weekend isn't good, sweetheart. Claire and Tom are coming. We're doing a small thing. I asked if I could come too. I asked if there was room for one more. She said, it's kind of a couple's thing. You know, you'd be the odd one out. The odd one out. That's what I was. Not a daughter. Not a sister. The odd one out. I said okay. I hung up. And I made a decision. I didn't confront them. That's not my style. I'm not a confrontational person. I'm a builder. I build walls. I build doors. I build new houses in new cities where nobody knows my name. And nobody has a portrait without me in it. I started with my apartment. I painted the walls a color my mother would have hated. Deep teal. The color of the ocean she was afraid of. I bought new furniture. Things she would have called too modern and not warm enough. I got a cat. Something she was allergic to. I made my space mine. Then I worked on my career. I was a graphic designer, freelance, barely scraping by. I started taking bigger projects, riskier projects. I worked nights, weekends, holidays. I stopped checking Facebook. I stopped waiting for phone calls. I stopped being the daughter who showed up hoping for something that wasn't coming. 6 months after the surgery, I got a call from my father. Not my mother, my father. He said my mother was sick. Nothing serious, he said. But she was asking for me. Could I come? Just for the weekend? I said yes. I don't know why. I think I wanted to see the portrait in person. I think I wanted to stand in front of it and feel something other than the cold nothing I'd been feeling for months. I drove 3 hours to my parents' house. The same house. The same living room. The same gold frame above the fireplace. I walked in, kissed my mother on the cheek, and stood in front of that portrait. 4 faces. Mine missing. I stared at it for a long time. My mother came up behind me. She said, we were going to tell you. Claire just thought it would be nice to have something current. You know, since you're not around as much. Not around as much. I'd been in surgery. I'd been recovering. I'd been waiting for them to show up. I turned around. I looked at my mother. I said, I was in the hospital. I was having a tumor removed. Did you forget that? She looked away. She said, we were there in spirit. I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. Spirit doesn't drive you to appointments. Spirit doesn't bring you soup. Spirit doesn't sit with you while you cry. I walked out of that house. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't raise my voice. I just walked out and drove 3 hours back to my apartment and my cat and my teal walls. That was 3 years ago. I haven't been back since. My sister called once, about a year after the portrait. She was crying. She said she was sorry. She said she hadn't meant to hurt me. She said she thought I'd be okay with it, since I wasn't really part of the family anymore, anyway. That last part. She actually said that. Since you're not really part of the family anymore anyway. I asked her what made her think that. She said, you left. You moved away. You never come to things. We just assumed you didn't want to be included. I told her I'd been in the hospital. I told her they'd replaced me in a portrait while I was under anesthesia. She said, that was a long time ago. Can't you just let it go? I said, can you take the portrait down? She said, it's not my house. I said, then there's nothing to talk about. She called me cold. She said I was punishing them for a mistake. She said I'd always been like this. Distant, unforgiving, impossible to love. I didn't argue. I just hung up. Here's what I've learned in the years since that portrait. The people who love you don't replace you. They don't take photos without you. They don't forget you're in the hospital. They don't tell you you're the odd one out. And the people who do those things, they were never really your family. They were just people you shared a name with. I don't hate my sister. I don't even hate my mother. I've let go of the anger. But I've also let go of the hope. I've stopped expecting them to be different. And that, more than anything, has set me free. I have a new family now. Gloria, the neighbor who brought me soup. A handful of friends who know my story and don't flinch. A partner I met at a design conference. Someone who looks at me like I'm the only person in the room. We don't have a portrait. We have a life. Sometimes I think about that gold frame. I think about the 4 faces smiling down at my parents' fireplace. I think about how I'm not in it, and how I never will be. And I feel something I didn't expect. I feel relief, because being left out of that portrait was the most honest thing they ever did. It told me exactly who I was to them, and it told me exactly who I needed to become to myself. If you've ever been erased by the people who were supposed to love you, here is what I want you to remember. You are not the missing piece in someone else's picture. You are the whole picture in your own life. And you don't need to be framed by people who never learned how to see you. Drop a comment if you've ever been the one left out of the family photo. Hit subscribe if you believe that family is about who shows up, not who shares your name. I'll see you in the next one.